Now let's move on to dive bombing. Guns and rockets can't cut it against targets like bridges, fortifications, or dug-in forces, so this will be your best means for dive bombing in any situation. Look for right wing stations with bomb shackles, 1,000-pound class bomb. A single-line station has a shackle of 500 pounds. We have all three stations loaded now. Fuel tanks can also be carried on each station, releasing the fuel tank with releasing bomb. This lesson will go over how to operate the system and try the dive bombing technique used by P-47 pilots in World War II. Many times this will be done near your own ground forces, so learning accuracy will be key. You can see our target just forward of the left wing, marked with red smoke. Press spacebar when you're ready to get started. First, let's talk over theory of operation for the armament system. Stores are suspended from bomb-shackled hooks at each station. These hooks are opened after firing voltage reaches a release unit. Arms on the release unit trip levers on the shackles that open the hooks, allowing the store to fall away. In short, all you have to do is place the safety switch up for the station or stations you wish to release and press the bomb release button on the stick. But that doesn't help us understand what went wrong when the stores don't release. Let's trace the voltage through the system and see how it actually works. Press spacebar to continue. The three weapon stations and their safeties are wired a little differently from the gun system, but the overall concepts are the same. The armament systems all run off the battery circuit, so even if the generator is providing power, the battery switch must be on. With the battery switch on, voltage to command whatever store is loaded to release is drawn from the bomb and tank release circuit breaker. This circuit breaker must be in for stores to be released electrically. Press spacebar to continue. Unlike the gun trigger, the bomb release button on the stick is always hot. Depressing it always closes the store's release relay and attempts to route power to each station. The safeties for each weapon station are located after the button in the circuit, so power stops at the three switches before reaching the station when the switches are off. The switches are labeled left station, right station, and belly station. Two other switches on the same panel are for rarely used chemical tanks, for smoke screens or tear gas. They're not used for bomb or fuel tank release. Press spacebar to continue. Go ahead and place the left and right station switches up for our first attack, but don't press the bomb release button. When it switches up, the circuit for that station is closed, and firing voltage will reach the station when the bomb release button is pressed. So when you press the button with 1, 2, or all three switches up, the hooks securing the bomb or tank in place open and allow them to fall away. Press spacebar to continue. Electrical release of stores is the primary means of getting them off the aircraft, but there are also mechanical handles that can be pulled to release them in an abnormal situation, like loss of electrical power or failure of one of the release units at a station. The two on the left release the wing station stores, while the one on the right releases the belly station store. These are connected directly to the release levers on the bomb shackle via cables, so giving them a strong tug will allow the store to fall away. Press spacebar to continue. Now, how it all works was the easy part. The hard part is releasing a bomb at the exact time and place to ensure a hit, using only the fixed gun sight as a guide. So let's go over that now. Go ahead and place the gun safety switch in the guns and camera position. This has nothing to do with bomb release, we only need this switch on to display the gun sight. Verify the fixed sight is displayed and press spacebar to continue. Let's talk through the attack before flying it. Look to the left just above the wing. See the target marked with red smoke. For this lesson, we'll begin the dive from about 9,000 feet above the target at just 250 miles per hour. We'll use a 45-degree dive and release the bomb at 3,000 feet above the target. This is a very standard setup for World War II, especially the 3,000 foot release altitude, although dive angles as high as 60 degrees were sometimes used. A series of gates is now visible that show the path to the roll-in point where the dive starts and provide a guide for a 45-degree dive. We'll approach that point with the target in view just to one side and roll in when we judge the dive angle to be correct. Pull the throttle back to control airspeed, then align the gun sight with the target. It's very important not to arc over with low or negative G during the dive, or the bomb could stick in the shackle or even recontact the aircraft. The last gate before the target is at the release altitude. When we approach the release altitude, we'll pull the nose up slightly to place the target at the bottom 40 mil line in the sight. Press the bomb release button to release the bomb, then pull up smoothly to avoid fragmentation. Press spacebar to continue. We saw the effect altitude, airspeed, and dive angle had on bullet drop during the gunnery lesson, and those same concepts still apply here, only more so. The trick then is to estimate how much the bomb's trajectory will change for the dive angle, altitude, and airspeed you release it from, and place the target lower in the sight to compensate. Shallower dives, higher altitude, or less airspeed result in more drop, so the target will need to be lower in the sight. Steeper dives, lower altitude, and more airspeed result in less drop, so the target will need to be placed higher in the sight. You'll also need to aim in the direction the wind is coming from. The stronger the wind or higher the release altitude, the more you need to compensate. There's no wind in this lesson though, so line up exactly on the target. Press spacebar to continue. I mentioned in the gunnery lesson that it's possible to take all the information and calculate the exact point to put the target in the sight for any given scenario, but I can't overstate how much individual technique comes into play here. For me, the correct point for the conditions in this lesson is 40 mils below the cross, the bottom horizontal line on the sight, but it's very likely that I or any other pilot missed the intended conditions consistently in one direction or the other, so what I recommend doing is what most units did in World War II, keep it simple and come up with 2 or 3 standard setups and use whatever place in the sight works best for those. So start with the 40 mil line at the bottom of the sight as a guide, and then adjust from there depending on where your bombs consistently hit. Now let's fly through the bombing run and see it all work. When you're ready, press spacebar to 1 pause. I'll talk you through the approach as we go. Okay, go for 250 miles per hour at the roller. Set hold, so consistent. I was approaching the airport. There's a little left-hand bank to the target of you. If you're flying VR over the head track, just lean over some, get to the side, and fly a straight line. Okay, we're approaching the holding ground. Know where the target is in relation to the wind as we go. You can use that to judge the right point to roll in from when you no longer have the gates to use as a guide. Okay, roll in to the left and pull to align the sight with the target. Be sure to fly straight and not to arc over as you dive. Okay, nose up slightly and place the target at the bottom line on the reticle. Release at 3,000 feet. Okay, weather away. Pull up smoothly to avoid the drag. Worry about looking for threats. In combat, there are only 2 options in the focus. Immediately, breaking the airspeed and dive for altitude. Climbing quickly back out of flight plane. This may be a good option. But it carries more risk. Or you can continue down to the deck and stay on the flight airspeed. Leave the general area and climb up their altitude. For now, let's go ahead and turn left and climb it. Let's see how we did. Look for craters to mark the impact areas. Don't beat yourself up if you